And we are back, week one, starting tonight, baby. So we got some college football full slate Saturday. We got some games on Friday and Thursday. And then we got a nice little game tonight as well. So we'll just jump right in.
Hold on, hold
Last
on. Before,
weekend,
before before we do that, Jared, you had a big weekend this week, or last week per se. You were trailgating, so talk a little bit about that. Let the listeners in on some secrets.
yeah, I was traveling across the country. Got to see a few of the college football stadiums, which was cool. So I saw Kentucky, Louisville, Iowa, and a few other ones. But it was cool to be able to check out some of those places. Obviously, no games were happening, but I think it's always awesome to be able to like see those places. It was cool to see Iowa, see the hospital in the background. So
Did you
it's
wave?
kind of I did wave, yes.
Good
Yep.
man.
So it was cool to see those places, see what happens, see the area so I can kind of like know what's going on there on game day. And hopefully I could get back to some of those places for some games at some point. And I was pretty close. I was pretty close to one of the big games last weekend, Nebraska, Illinois, to kick off the Big Ten season. I think we got to talk real quick about week zero. It was definitely an interesting one. We had a few blowouts, and yeah, it was interesting. I think Scott Frost was definitely in hot water. Um,
If
he's
he wasn't
12 and
already,
yeah, he's 12-21 with the Huskies. Um, and did you see his quote when he said that their offensive plan went out the window like on the
well,
first drive?
I thought it was he said about the defense. He was like, "Yeah, when they lined up like that, we had no chance, or
So
like
my
we
thing
just
is
threw it out
like,
the window."
how do you practice all season long for the first game? You have footage of what's gonna happen, and then just throw it all out after
No,
the
that's
first
the
drive.
point. The point is that you make adjustments during the game. That's what good coaches do. That's what good programs do. That's what good teams do. And he just didn't do that, and did not even recognize that. I mean, he is just. I think ESPN. You saw those two graphics that ESPN put up. Basically it was like, hey, look, this is what Nebraska was, and then it's like a new era in Nebraska, and it was like Scott Frost. Yeah, he's 12-21 by the way, and he's still around, so it's not a new era. They looked terrible.
Yeah.
Illinois, I mean, the Illinois is first in the Big Ten right now. They're riding high. It was a great week zero. It really was.
Honestly, like,
Hottest gambler on the show, 4-0 and week zero, going in. Going
well,
into
I
week
went
one.
5-0.
Yeah, no, but it's all about efficiency, bro.
That is efficient. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, I mean, they look good for sure. The man to man defense was good for Illinois. I mean, a lot of people forget, but Brett Bielema went to a Big Ten championship. Like he's had some good teams. Like he could definitely put together a few games where they sneakily beat someone big. And then what the fuck was going on with the UCLA crowd? Did you see that?
It's
There was no
California.
one there.
I mean, it's California. What do you expect? They're also no one's going to really get up for a matchup against the Rainbow Warriors. They have a much bigger game this weekend, which
Hell,
will
if you would have
obviously
told me
benefit.
like, oh, you can get a ticket for like $15 to go to the Rose
Weeks
Bowl,
week zero
like,
doesn't resonate with California crowds. I mean, if you look at the Dodger Stadium, one of the best teams in Major League Baseball, that place is empty every night. They also hold 50,000 people, but
yeah,
it's we're talking LA fans. But then again, big game coming up for them this week. I think that's
huge
their
game.
focal point for UCLA fans.
Yeah, and they looked pretty good. Obviously, their run game was really good. They
Defense
got
look great.
they got Charbonnet from Michigan, and he had a great game.
Yep.
The only thing is like DTR, their quarterback. I know it was Hawaii, but like he didn't complete half of his passes, and they only had him throw like 20 passes. So I don't know against like Derek Stingley and the rest of those LSU guys that I'm worried about that, but we'll
But
probably get
you
into that
wonder how
more.
much of Chip Kelly's old offense is going to be seen. Obviously when he was in Oregon, it was a lot of run. It was a lot. They used like DeAnthony Thomas. They was those great running backs in Oregon, and they tried to do that. He tried to do that in Philly too, and then ended up trading his running back for a linebacker. Weird thing, but um, again, the Chip Kelly era in UCLA, I think this is a big year for him. I think that team looked pretty good. Again, the quarterback play
It
is who
did. Yeah.
we talk about this on the show all the time as important. I think that the defense looked great. I think that's what carried them. That's what I keep teasing it, but again, they're gonna jump from the Rainbow Warriors to the Tigers now in LSU. So
Yeah.
two very different programs.
It could be possible that he was kind of like keeping his guns close to his chest and didn't
Yeah.
really like break out the offense very much,
Yeah.
just because they didn't want us to get them to ruin anything. But yeah, big week 0. It was fun. But I
Football's
think
back.
this week 1 is going to be amazing. I think that there's some awesome games on the slate. I mean, we'll get to the big one, but there's a ton of ranked matchups. And just a lot of interesting storylines. A lot of people are talking about how like this could be like one of the best years because there's so many good teams, and so many people that are like trying to prove themselves. So, what do you think is a team in this first week that you think really needs to prove themselves in their game?
I think it is LSU. I think they're
Yeah.
coming off a 5-on-5 year, again a down year, COVID year, and they got basically a brand new regime on offense coming in. They lost their 3 best targets the last 2 seasons,
Yeah.
so they're really this is a big year for Ed Orgeron and LSU. I think that you'll touch on it as well. It's not a cakewalk to go into UCLA and win, especially with how the defense played week 0. Again, they've got a week under their belts. I think this will be a big adjustment game for LSU to kind of come in and prove themselves. But they had one of the worst years in program, like that was in recent program history. And you want to punt it because of COVID, but there's a lot of new additions to this offense that they're really gonna have to get going right away. Especially they're going from 5-5 to now top 10 team in the country. So there's a lot of added pressure on them.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Going 5-5, losing to they started off the season losing to Mississippi State. They lost to Missouri, which was pretty rough. I mean, their offense wasn't bad. They were just like super inconsistent. I mean, I know they had a lot of random quarterback play, but I think when they finally decided on Max Johnson, he did well. I mean, he had 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, had wins against Florida and Ole Miss. They were horrible on the ground last year, 3.3 yards per carry. They really got to figure that out. I mean, they have like an insane offensive line. Like all of them will probably end up being NFL prospects. And like this is one of those things. Like Ed Orgeron, before they won that national championship, was always considered one of those guys that could recruit but can't win. Like people always gave him that stigma, and so like. I know it's great that he has that one championship now, but he needs to go out there and be able to prove like that wasn't just a one-hit wonder. It wasn't just because I had Burrow and Chase and all these great weapons. Like he needs to go out there and prove like I can create like a dynamic dynasty like someone like Saban or Dabo, like something like that. He needs to go out there. I think they can turn it around. Like the biggest thing is they need to be able to run the ball. They need to like protect their quarterback and give him time, and then they need to stop the run. Also, they gave up like 4.8 yards per carry and 18 touchdowns, which in 10 games is rough.
How about 35 points per game? Obviously we talk about the SEC kind of being, we used to be a defensive powerhouse, but it really is shifting to more of an offensive game, and that offense couldn't handle putting up more than 35 points a game. I think, I want to ask you this: what makes you think that this team could be the start of that dynasty? Because I don't see it. I think they're maybe a year or 2 away. I know they've had a couple of great recruiting classes coming in, but I do you really believe in Max?
No, I don't. I think that I think he's a solid quarterback. I think he can, have good games, but I think he's also that type of guy that's just very inconsistent. I'm kind of worried about them beating UCLA, honestly. I kind of favor UCLA in this matchup, especially since they've already been able to like get out there and play a game.
Home dogs.
Yeah, well, it might not matter if none of their fans fucking show up, though. But yeah, I mean, their defense has a lot of talent. Their offense has a lot of talent. This is an SEC school. They got the recruits. It's just, can Ed Orgeron and this coaching staff get these guys to perform at a high level. I really think that they did really well in that national championship year because of Joe Brady, and losing Joe Brady, I think, was a huge, huge loss for them. And I think this is the year that they need to come out there and prove like it wasn't just because of that. It wasn't just because of those guys. But yeah, no, I'll move on to another team. I think Texas has a lot to prove. I mean, time and time again, this dynasty, I mean, we can consider them a huge college football team. Like at one point, they were at the top of the top, and for the past few years, they've kind of sputtered. I mean, they did finish 7-3 last year and 8-5 the year before that. So it's not like they're like completely dog trash or anything, but they, obviously need to take a step up. There's high expectations in Austin. And I think Sarkisian is a good coach. I think he's a good leader. He obviously did a great job as the OC at Alabama. Their defense is rough, and so that's the one thing that I'm worried about. Obviously, Sarkisian is going to probably do well with their offense. I like Bijan Robinson, their running back. I think he's a stud, and I think he's going to have a great season. I mean, they were a dumpster fire recently, just with all the issues. It's crazy they finished 7-3. Obviously, coming out of the Sam Ehlinger years, Hudson Card starting, so quarterback play we're not too sure on yet. But I think this is a big season for them, and this first week is big because they take on Louisiana Lafayette, who returned. They return like pretty much their entire team. Billy Napier, their head coach, is just waiting in the wings to get a Power 5 offer, and he's probably going to get one at the end of the season because they're going to win the Sun Belt. But I think this is a huge game for them. If they can come out and make a statement and win it, this could set them on a right path because we know they're going to go to the SEC at some point, and they're going to have to figure their shit out quick before they get to that, or they're going to get fucking pounced on once they hit the SEC. So this is kind of that build-up period where they can start to like improve on their, chances of becoming a better dynamic team and getting back to where they were.
I'll use this to transition to our next topic. We're talking about which possible teams could get upset. I think Texas is a big chance of dropping this game. Lafayette's not a team to mess around with. Excuse me, playing injured by the way. First of all, the line jumped from 16 to 9.5. That's 16.5 to 9.5. It's a 7-point difference. That's a total touchdown difference. I think Lafayette and they played really well last year. Again, they're in a conference with Coastal Carolina, which is pretty. They got a lot of tough competition. With a new quarterback, new coach in charge, Bijan Robinson is fantastic. That defense is atrocious. I mean, this team is not better than Iowa State. This team is not better than Oklahoma. This team is not. This team is still. They got to essentially find new identity. I mean, Sarkisian's going to turn this offense into a juggernaut, but can the defense hold up? And I think Lafayette is a good enough offense to come in and be like, and upset. I mean, this could be one of my big upsets, for week one. I think, Texas. And by the way, I'll add this note too. Kirk Hermstreet is kind of bullish on Texas, Austin being a college football town. The fact that he said I'm part of my take. He was like, I'm not really. I don't really. Texas was great when they had the Colt McCoys and the Vince Young. That town loved their team, but
come on,
they haven't been backing him since. Is what he's and. I know the Longhorns love their program, their football, but they have been, since really Mac Brown left. I mean, what have they had? They've had 5 different.
No, they've been terrible. I mean, I'll admit that, but
I think Sarkisian's a great pick. I think you're to move into the SEC, as long as you're still there, it's a great transition. Yeah. But again, this week 1, do I have all the confidence in them, one, to cover, but also to win? I don't know. This could be one to be on upset alert for week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. I don't feel confident enough in them to take it 7.5. I think that Texas is going to win, but I don't feel confident enough in that to take that line. But I think Sarkisian does enough to get by this team. He's done a really good job of we saw last year, Bama played fast as hell on offense. But that was because their defense was decent enough to be able.
They also had the best. They had some of the best weapons in college football history.
Yeah.
So
So they were averaging I think they were averaging 31, 32 minutes a game having the ball at Bama. So if they can do that, kind of keep the Longhorns defense off the field, uh, I think that could be their strategy to win. Um, and I think that they'll eventually do it. Since you mentioned upset, I guess I'll just touch on my upset of a Power 5 team. I think Washington State. Obviously, this is not a huge upset, but
you got
there's
top 25
not.
votes.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of top 25 matchups that I would consider. Obviously, LSU plays UCLA, and there's Penn State, Wisconsin, Iowa, Indiana. But the hard thing about week one is we don't really know if they are upsets at some point, other than those big ones where a lower team beats a Power 5. Those are the ones that you know for a fact are an upset. So the one that I like is I think that Utah State is going to beat Washington State. So Blake Anderson is the head coach now. He came from Arkansas State. We saw over the past 2 or 3 years that they have had an awesome offense. Anderson just does a really good job of building out a system and using his guys effectively on offense. And they actually got 14 transfers this offseason at Utah State. And so that just shows how many people are willing to play under Anderson. And one of those guys they got was Arkansas State's starting quarterback from last year, which is Logan Bonner. And they got 8 Power 5 transfers. So I think they have a really strong transfer class. They return a lot of their guys. I like Anderson. The line on it right now, last time I checked, it was 16.5. So I love plus 16.5 for for Utah State against Washington State. And I think this one could be potentially one that you might want to throw a little bit of cash on the money line as well for Utah State. I think this could be a good game for them. Yeah, just sprinkle it on there a little bit. I'm gonna do it. I mean, I took Oral Roberts in March Madness to win, so gotta get a little you gotta get crazy on the first day. So we talked a little bit about teams that have to prove a lot. What are some players or a player that you think has a lot to prove this week?
I think when week one, you always have the preseason All-Americans, and obviously it's headlined by the quarterback position.
Yeah.
I mean, Spencer Rattler started so slow last year and obviously finished a little bit stronger. I think he's obviously, and he's QB1 according to a lot of draft experts. And I'm not the biggest on Spencer Rattler, so I think he's got a lot to prove. They're predicted to win the Big 12. They got to get back to the Final Four and the college football playoff. So I think Spencer Rattler's got a lot in his back, a lot in his plate. I mean, he's essentially succeeding. He was one of the top recruits coming in. So he's succeeding Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield and that whole line. The whole line of guys. And I think that, he's got to start a lot stronger this time, this season. And I think he's one of them. And then also D'Eriq King. I know. Again, he's one of those guys again highly touted. Just came from Houston towards ACL, and I think he's got a tough matchup with Bama. But we talked about it last or 2 episodes ago, and I think Miami they are a big boo or bust team. I don't think that defense is really going to be adept to stopping anybody, even in the ACC. The ACC I think is a much improved conference this year. So I think D'Eriq King's got to really carry that team like he's been promised to do. So I think those 2 quarterbacks are 2 guys that have a lot on their shoulders this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of those guys that if he can have a huge week, let's be honest, I think Alabama is just a lock to win this game for sure. But I think if he can have a good performance, that's gonna go lengths for him when it comes draft time. If he can have a solid game and they can put up some points against Alabama. My players that I think need to have a lot to prove this week, and they have huge matchups, is a lot of these quarterbacks that are replacing guys that got drafted in the first round. So we're talking DJ Ugalele against Georgia. I mean, DJ Ugalele. Was that wrong?
Okay. I'm glad we went to this topic first because we're gonna talk about Georgia Clemson in a second. So I think that
You wanted to be able to get it from me.
I'm gonna forget. I'm gonna forget anyway. So I'll probably still watch it probably.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, he played against Notre Dame last year, had a great game, and he's shown that he has the talent. But this is the first time that he's thrown into the fire. This is a hard defense to have the first game of the season against. Then you go to Bryce Young, who's trying to replace a guy like Mac Jones, and then obviously before that, Tua and Jalen. So the big shoes to fill. He's been getting a lot of money from the NIL, and he starts off against Miami. We've talked about that their defense isn't great, but still a huge game in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Like, the pressure is on, like, for your first start as a quarterback for the University of Alabama. Like, they just won the national championship. Their expectations are super high. So to be like a new quarterback in that system is always stressful, and he has a lot to prove. And then finally, like, replacing Justin Fields. Like, Justin Fields has been a huge part of that Ohio State team. He's the reason for their success over the past few years. And for CJ Stroud, like, starting at Minnesota, not an easy matchup. Like, I think that they're going to go in there and beat them. The line on it's 14. But for a guy playing his first game with a huge expectations, I mean, talk about, Justin Fields, JT Barrett obviously, hasn't become anything in the NFL, but he was a great college quarterback. Dwayne Haskins, like, all three of these guys are following up huge quarterbacks that had great college careers, could have great NFL careers. Like, they have a lot of expectations to live up to, so they have a lot to prove, especially in, like, harder games. Like, obviously Minnesota is not great, but like for Bryce Young to have to play a top 15 team, for DJ to have to play against a top 5 team, like, this is being thrown into the fire for sure. So they have definitely a lot to prove.
Can we touch on Ohio State a little bit?
Sure.
I know two episodes ago we talked. I picked Wisconsin to maybe win the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I was listening to the Pick'em podcast, great Barstool podcast. Rico Bosco, they just happened to just slip it under the rug. He goes, it was one of his best bets. Ohio State plus 550 win the national championship.
Is it 550?
Yeah. So all the crap we talked about, I'm not either. But if this CJ Stroud guy, if he plays half what Justin Fields plays, I'll touch a little bit on why. I'll touch a little bit on Bama a little bit later, but. I hate to admit that because I would go back on my word about Wisconsin potentially dethroning them, but they've got a lot of question marks. There's just so many question marks in the Big Ten, and you and I both love our Big Ten football. You have obviously a big game this week. By the way, 16th anniversary. ESPN decided to rub it in my face. Michigan Appalachian State, fantastic. Really enjoyed that one, ESPN. But you guys got a big game coming up too. But Ohio State, I mean, like you said, every time you question them, they end up playing, over expectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, I think it's going to be between 3 teams. I think Ohio State definitely has the best chance. I think Wisconsin has the second best chance, and then I'd probably put Penn State at 3.
Yeah. Iowa, Indiana.
I think they have a possibility. I just think that they're not going to. I think that Wisconsin's better than both of them. And
Indiana plays in the same division as Iowa or as Ohio State.
Yeah, they play like Indiana plays Iowa first week, which is going to be another great game, which we'll talk about later as well. But let's talk about the Big Daddy. I mean, let's just get to it. We have number 3 Clemson versus number 5 Georgia in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's going to be a great game. I mean, this is probably one of the games that's not a Penn State game that I've been the most excited for probably in my entire life. Like, this is the game, and I might possibly be going, which is going to make it even more exciting.
Trails up, bro.
So let's hear it. What are the keys to the game for these teams? What's your prediction? What are you thinking about this game? I know you were talking about DJ couple seconds ago.
Say
So
his last name
let's
again.
hear it. Ukulele?
Ukulele, there you go. Yeah, I think again, I harp on the QB battle here. I think, I think obviously, he's the Georgia defense has always been known as a great defense, but I do think that, do they have enough firepower in the pass rush to stop DJ in that offense? Do I think? But I think the other question is JT Daniels. He was very underwhelming at the end of last year. And he's going up against probably one of the best defenses he's faced. Brent Venables is a great. He's an unbelievable coordinator, and I think that he always has that defense. I mean, you obviously you saw how Justin Fields carved them apart. Do I think JT Daniels is Justin Fields? No, but that I think Brent Venables makes the adjustments. And I think for.
So you didn't think that JT Daniels looked good last year?
I mean, again, the inconsistent. I mean, that offense was not was not one of the best SEC offenses. They weren't. Their defense carried them through a lot. So that's again. Does he take the next step? He's not one of the top 3 quarterbacks coming out this year. He's got a lot to prove, but I think that this is going to be his toughest test before Bama, and I think I think Brent Venables. I think that defense will be too tough for him, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean this game definitely sets the stage for what's going to happen for the rest of the year. The team that loses this could definitely miss out on the national championship or the college football playoff and getting one of those 4 spots. This is a huge game. I recognize that Clemson returns a lot of their guys. DJ obviously has experience playing in big games. For some reason, ever since last season, when I looked at the upcoming schedule for this season and I saw this game sitting there, it made me want to take Georgia, and I got to go with my gut on it. And I'll be honest, all of the stats and everything on paper leans towards Clemson. They have a good team. They have a good team, and their defense is really good with Brett Venables. But
they're also healthier too. I mean, you also have to remember Georgia's number 2 option is the tight end who's hurt.
Yes.
As much as I love Pickens is a stud. They don't have the running game that Todd Gurley and Sonny Michel and
I do like their running back depth. They have a lot of depth, and they can try a bunch of different guys like Zamir White, Cook, Milton. I'm a big fan of JT Daniels. Obviously, he was a huge recruit. They scored 10 more points per game when he played. Obviously, Stetson Bennett was not great, but I mean he did what he could. But 10 more points per game. They were averaging 486 yards per game when JT Daniels played. He had them going there for a while. I think one of the interesting things that we're going to have to watch is the Clemson O-line. So they have a new starter, and then a few of their returnees are going to be playing. Really. Yeah, that's probably the 2 biggest things, but Clemson really mixed up a lot of their offensive linemen. So there's a couple guys that were playing tackle that are moving inside. They're moving around a lot. And I think this front 7 for the Georgia defense is insanely good. Obviously, they lost Ojulari, but they still have a great 7 up front, and they're going to be blitzing the fuck out of DJ. I think if they can get to him 4 or 5 times, that could be a big change in this game. And then the other thing is on Clemson's defense, we saw last year against Ohio State, the biggest vulnerability for that secondary is going vertical and long balls. Justin Fields was just dropping in passes against Olave and Garrett Wilson. Their vertical vulnerability as a defense is that. And
they're also beat down the middle. They basically what you're mentioning with Garrett Wilson. They were beat down the middle, which is
speed.
It's
essentially
speed. It's speed, but it's also that's Washington territory. That's Darnell Washington territory for Georgia. If you're gonna send they got beat, they basically played a version of cover 2 where that middle linebacker is supposed to occupy that middle deep, and then Tampa 2, and then you have the 2 safeties on the edge, and Luke Farrell and those Ohio State tight ends just beat him down the middle. Like I think Clemson focuses on Pickens. I think they take him out of the game, or they're going to try to do their best to take him out of the game. But who's going to make up the for Washington and down the middle? Like I agree with you, but I think the injury concerns on offense for Georgia, I think that worries me a little bit. JT with JT
I think Daniels, like, I think his talent just supersedes it. I mean, these guys on this team, like, let's not lie, like, there's talent on this team. Like, just because we don't know them,
they're top 5 for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at one point we didn't know who George Pickens was. Like, we didn't know how good he was. He was just a name on the depth chart. Like, this is one of those things. Like, this could be one of those breakouts for a guy like that to, put his name on the map. I just think I could see 350, 400 yards from JT Daniels.
When was the last time we said that about a Georgia quarterback consistently?
A while. I mean, I don't think Fromm ever really put up that big of numbers. But
so why don't we do this? Let's just get into bets. Is this one of your best bets?
I'll say that I wouldn't put a ton of units on this. I think it's just one of those things where every week, like, I love to bet on, like, the big game. I'm going to watch it, and I'm probably going to it. But, like, in terms of every week, there's that big game, and I'm always going to bet it. Like, because you're going to watch it, you want something to, like, be able to, like, root for in the game. I've been saying this since last season. I have Georgia. I'm taking them +3. I'll probably sprinkle the money line. I like this team. I think they're good. I think this is finally, like, Kirby's chance to, like, put his, like, shut everybody up and be like, I can do this. I can beat, like, a big-time school. And I think it sets them up well for the rest of the season. Obviously, that they're going to have some tough games, but if they can get the momentum by beating Clemson, that would be huge for them. So, yes, Clemson is definitely one of my bets, but not one of those that I'm, like, hanging my hat on. Georgia. What is your? I know you wanted to do, like, favorite dog, and then, like, a total. So you want to start with your favorite because I think makes sense with this.
Well, yeah, Clemson. I'm taking Clemson this game. I think, I just think they're the more experienced team. I think they're coming in. They're obviously new quarterback coming in, but I do think that, if we want to talk from a betting terms, they're sharp right now. Sharp action is on Clemson, but at the same time, it's a top 5 matchup going into playing at home at Clemson. If this was in Georgia, it might be a little different, but I do think that, Clemson's going to have the upper hand here. I think you lay the number at home. That's my best. That's my favorite. And like you said, this is gonna be a marquee matchup. You're gonna want to tune into it. You're gonna want to check it out. You're gonna want to have some skin in the game. I'm gonna be absolutely taking the points or laying the number here, with -3. And I'll jump into the rest to wrap the bets up. This is more of a who you bet against. We always want to bet against UConn football. We always want to bet against Syracuse. I love Ohio representing the MAC. They're dogs. They're dogs +1.5. Syracuse was 1-10 last year. This is not a good football team. Give me the MAC. Give me some action.
You don't think Dino's gonna have the boys rolling?
Give me some action. Give me Maction dogs at home +1.5. Very very small, very small dog. I do think if my other one would be.
What is that at now? Is that like at 7 or?
Ohio versus Syracuse?
It's isn't it like 1.5?
1.5. It's a very small dog. I like that. I think that's a fun play. I think if you do want another dog that we did talk about, I think UCLA might be a good one to look at. I think it's one to monitor, but that's not one of my best bets. And my total, another fun game, Bama Miami. We talked about that. Bama overs are usually locks, throughout the year. You talk about the time of possession that Alabama had last year. They still put up 7 points. They wouldn't settle for field goals in the 30 minutes. They'd put up points. Their defense isn't what it used to be. If De'Aaron King can perform, I think they put up 20-ish points. The number is 61 right now. I think Bama will pull up 40 points on this defense. You get a 42-21 Alabama win. that total's hitting, and I can absolutely see that happening.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick. I'd probably stay away from it, but I'm not gonna hate
Bama
on you
overs,
picking
man.
it.
Bama overs are always money every year. Every year.
All right, so I'll go favorites. I have two, so I'm gonna go UNC minus 5.5. A lot of people are really talking this game up. It's on Friday. I know VT is a tough place to play, and the students will definitely be going in that game. I'm not high on UNC as a whole throughout the whole year, but I think 5.5 is an easy cover for them. They definitely
Make
win
Sam
by
Howell great, baby.
they win at least by a touchdown. I think Mac Brown's gonna have the guys going. Sam Howell's gonna want to have a amazing game to start off the season, so he can kick off like a Heisman campaign.
Love that
Like
pick.
he's gonna be going. So I think 5.5 is easy to lay on a favorite. And then Ole Miss, I've seen it 9.5 somewhere. I think it's up to 10 maybe against Louisville on Monday. I mean, come on, a Monday game like that's gonna be awesome. We got
Give me Monday Night Football. Give me all the. I literally after week 0, I was depressed
Just
on
every day.
Sunday because there was no football. Monday, I was
just
looking
good.
forward to Wednesday. We're rolling. We're rolling,
Dude, I'm gonna be watching Jacksonville State tonight. Like I'm
That's
on
Dion.
one.
That's Dion, right? That's Coach Prime.
No, different one.
Okay, jeez. I was about to say. Like, I was gonna. If that was Coach Prime, I'm betting that game too. But I'll be tuned in.
Ole Miss. I think once again, Lane is gonna have the guys going. I've talked about them last or that was 2 episodes ago. I'm big on Ole Miss this year. I love Matt Corral. I think they're gonna come in and just blow the fucking gates out of Louisville. Like their offense is explosive, and obviously I have concerns about their defense, but I think I just don't think Louisville is going to be able to like keep up with them points wise. So I like them at 9.5 or 10, whatever you can get on that. And then for dogs, obviously I gave Georgia. I'm more of a fan of like Utah State, which I mentioned earlier, beating Washington State. And then the other one that I kind of like is Fresno State plus 19.5 against Oregon. I think the one thing is they already got to play a game. They looked great. They have a lot of confidence. They already got their feet under them playing their first one. Oregon has a new quarterback. There's a lot of hype on this team. Every year this happens. Pac-12 teams have a lot of hype. They come out of the gates a little rough. I don't think Fresno State's going to have a shot at winning this, but I think that they can keep it. This line could go up too, so I'd kind of wait until the day of. You might be able to get it at like 21 or 20. But I like it at 19.5 also. I think that they
football
could keep,
number.
Yeah.
Always try to follow those football numbers.
Yeah, I think that they can keep it within 14 or 17, something like that. They'll definitely keep it close, especially since they have their legs under them. Totals, we do this every year. Big 10 totals under.
Penn
100%.
State, give it Michigan Northwestern. Give it to me.
What?
Michigan State Northwestern. Come on. What's the total at right now?
I mean, I'll definitely be taking that, but my favorite ones are Iowa, Indiana. Fuck, that is going under like crazy. I mean, Iowa is 9-2 on the under in Kinnick over the past 2 seasons. They're gonna make that 10-2. Penix is coming off of a huge knee surgery, so he's gonna be slow out the gate. And we know Kirk Ferentz just loves to grind the shit out of games and just control the clock. This is going to be disgusting. Like, this is going to be more ugly to watch than the Illinois-Nebraska game. Like, it is going to be.
How about the first 2 points of the college football season, huh? A forward.
I mean, do you want anything more than a start to a Big Ten season? Like, it's beautiful. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. And
45.
It's going to go under. It's 46 on DK. And so I'm taking that under 100%. This is going to be mucky as hell. And then I think the Penn State-Wisconsin game goes under as well. Camp Randall, it's going to be loud. Clifford has a lot of expectations. He played bad last season. Wisconsin's defense is good. Mertz is coming off a season where he has a lot of expectations. We know that Wisconsin likes to run the ball a lot. I think Penn State's going to lean on their running game a lot too. I think it's just going to be a game that's just going to come down to the wire. It's going to be one of those like 27-24 type games, might be even lower than that. And the over-under is 51.5 on some books. I think that's an easy under as well. But if you're going to ask me, I'm Big Ten unders probably across the board.
We love that. We
it's
love
just
Big Ten unders.
It's easy money. But yeah, I mean that's my bets for the week. Love your bets for the week. We'll see how we do. I mean, we have a big matchup. I have Georgia, obviously. You have Clemson.
We want to put some skin on that game.
I'm down to put on it. What do you want to do?
We want a well, how about a little? We'll do steak dinner on it, huh?
I'm down for that.
We'll do a little
You'll
steak
pay
dinner.
For dinner for me. I like that.
We'll do steak.
I'm down
steak
for
dinner.
that.
We're doing the points, so they got to cover. Good teams win, great teams cover. So
doing the cover, yeah.
Love that. All right, we'll do a. See, I'll be generous. I'll go to Outback for you. Lakeland. Actually, Lakeland's finest establishment, Texas Cattle Company, could really use some of your business. So, we can make that happen.
I'll be more than happy to not give you that money after I win.
Perfect.
All right, real quick. I mean, we have a little bit of time left.
Yes.
Let's hear your predictions. Let's do Heisman, Final Four, and then championship. I don't love doing this stuff, but I know people like it, so we can just throw it out real quick. Not a lot of expectations for this, I would say.
I'm gonna go the top four. I'm gonna go your four. Your basic four. You're not Michigan. Bama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma. I think does get in. I think Spencer Rattler does take a step forward. I think what's great about this is that this will be the last year of the four, right? Or is that 2 years?
2 years.
Okay, so yeah, there's not gonna be much parity. As exciting and as evenly balanced as this year is gonna be, and I don't think Bama is a runaway favorite, to be completely honest. I think they're Clemson. I think they take a step back, but I am gonna say Bama, Ohio State, and I think Ohio State wins it this year. After all the crap, just reading into it again, I think this Ohio State team is pretty damn good. They're pretty damn good.
I got a bold one here for you.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Let's hear it.
I'm going Georgia, Clemson, Oklahoma, and USC.
Wow.
Yep.
So and this is great too because
So I have the Big Ten missing the college football playoff.
We also talked about how the Pac-12 beats up on each other every year. Oregon obviously the top. This is the year they sneak in. Who out of those four who makes it?
I think this. I would bet honestly if I was taking a future, I'd bet Georgia to win it all.
Georgia. So Georgia wins this week. Clemson bound. See, that's my problem is if Clemson loses this week,
they'll probably go undefeated though.
Yeah, but is there as a one-win team, do they still beat Alabama, a one loss Alabama? Do they still?
I think Alabama's gonna have multiple losses.
Ohio State, for example, does Ohio State lose more than one? Bama. Do you think Ohio State loses more than one game? I hope it's to Michigan, but
I think the Big Ten's gonna beat each other up, and it's gonna screw them out of the
Notre Dame.
I think Notre Dame's gonna be awful this year.
Yeah, I mean, I like that.
Their win total is 8.5.
I like that. I like
their win total is 8.5.
I believe it.
Jack Cohen sucks. Honestly, I was literally
the same close. Jack Cohen from
Wisconsin. Yeah, he's terrible. I was literally this close to taking Florida State to beat them, and I think they might.
I love that number.
7.5. I think.
You take the football number. That is a good one.
I mean, Notre Dame
Sunday night too.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful game.
I was gonna go.
Yeah, and then I guess Heisman. I think Heisman's so confusing this year. I think that there could be so many different.
Is there going to be a Joe Burrow that kind of comes out? Plus.
I think that's what it's going to be. I'm going to go. If I think that you got to play the game where like if you think a team's gonna have a good season, usually what happens is if a team has a good season, like the person that's helping them get there, usually quarterback, is the one that is probably going to be in the Heisman running. So I'm going to go JT Daniels.
I know after we talked about it, it should be Spencer Rattler, but give me Bijan Robinson. Give me Bijan Robinson. Give me
no way. I love Bijan Robinson.
Give me
but there
Bijan
is
Robinson
no
to go
way that
off.
BJ
1.01 in future draft and 2022 drafts.
What is his odds?
I bet Sarkisian just peppers him, just absolutely uses him like CMC in the NFL, just dumps it off to him. Like
he is plus 3,000.
There you go. There's your Joe Burrow odds right there. Give me some Bijan Robinson.
Dude, Bryce Young has the second best odds. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I think Keaton Slovis is someone that's interesting too. He's
well, that's if USC plays well, if they crack the top 4, it's going to be on Slovis' shoulders.
I might just throw some cash on Tank Bigsby. That's my guy.
We're at that point in the podcast right now.
Interesting game on Thursday, UCF Boise State. I'm excited for that one as well.
That'll be a good one.
Just
tomorrow.
Malzone.
Yep. Well, tomorrow we got Rutgers. Well, actually, it's right in my backyard. But tomorrow we got Rutgers Temple. That's a fun one.
Let's tell the fans, if you're obviously tuning in for the Clemson Georgia game, but what do you think is the second game that is like must watch? What would you like tell people like you need to watch this game?
Do I not take one of the marquee ones?
Yeah, I guess I would try to like not take one of the marquee ones.
Man, what's a one that I'm going to be tuning into? I'll let you answer that question first. I got to narrow my options here.
I think I'm gonna go. Let's go. I think like you need to have 2 screens, or you got to be at the bar. You got to be watching UCLA LSU.
Yeah, I was gonna take that one.
Like, I think that's just gonna be a great game. I think UCLA is getting underrated. Obviously, we want to see what's gonna go on with LSU. You're gonna be watching the Georgia Clemson game at the same time, so you got to have 2 screens. But I think that's definitely a must watch. I mean, obviously, we have a few games where it's like 19 versus 12, Penn State, Wisconsin, and that's at 12. We have 3:30.
That's a marquee game.
Yeah, so like obviously you want to watch all those games, but I think that's one of those ones where like sneakily that could be a really good game. Let's see what else. I like
the UNC Virginia Tech game. Actually, no, Indiana Iowa. Indiana Iowa is my pick. I think that's gonna be a hell of a game. It's gonna be gross.
But if you like defense, that's
if you like Big Ten football, then you're gonna watch. Well, if you like Big Ten football, you're gonna watch Northwestern, Michigan State. That's a fact. I mean, Bama. You want points? Bama, Miami. What's another one that's kind of, again, I think we talked about. You know what? Actually, 5 p.m. Pac-12 Network, San Jose State, USC. That could be a fun one.
All I care about is the fact that Hawaii plays at 11:59 Eastern Time. Yes, I'm going to be able to throw some dough on that right after I win my Utah State bet.
We're back. We're back to Rainbow Warriors games on Facebook Live. For all you degenerates out there, you know what we're talking about.
An interesting one too is I think UMass could put up a good game against Pittsburgh. That line is like pretty high.
I saw that and I was thinking this is a psychotic one to bring up. I love that. UMass is terrible,
what is it?
But I think
is it 38?
Yes. Well, you want to talk about that one too? One. And then there's one that's 50. But
the thing also is like, I mean, I like Pickett. I think he's a solid player, but like something that goes along with like week 1 or against like these cupcake matchups is you gotta like be aware of like what coaches like to pound it down people's throats and what kind of like lay off the pedal. And like Chip Kelly kind of did that with UCLA. Like they could have continued to just blow him out of the water.
He knew we had the under.
I think Narduzzi is like one of those old school like head coaches where like if he gets up big against UMass, like they're gonna pull the pedals off. And I don't think they're that great. So like it might be one of those games where UMass might be like a 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns behind them, and they're gonna cover that 38. Like I think that's a good line. I mean, it might be a cheese line, but
All right, I got
honestly,
run here.
yeah. I mean, a week from now, I might look like an idiot because Georgia might lose, and
We're
then
gonna have,
I'm
and
like,
I'm gonna be eating. So we're gonna have some great recaps next week for sure.
there's some nice steak places in Charlotte, so better
I'm sure
pony
there
up, my
is.
brother.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, for Alex, I'm Jared. Trails Up Podcast. We will see you next week. Have fun this weekend.
Peace.